Liberty Nation. Truth is making a comeback.
Welcome to another edition of the Liberty Nation Roundtable, where our authors expand on a number of topics. And this week we'll be discussing the immigrant caravan that is heading for the U.S.-Mexican border in what appears to be a showdown between President Trump and people either seeking asylum or who just want to sneak across the border. Joining me for this lively discussion among conservatives are Sarah Cowgill, national columnist for LibertyNation.com, Scott Cosenza, our constitutional expert and legal affairs editor, and Graham J. Noble, LN's correspondent and expert in all things political. I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Well, it seems that over 1,000 Hondurans are headed for our southern border, and many say they're coming to seek asylum. Are we being a bunch of meanies if we turn them back? Sarah, let's start with you.
No. You know, we have had amnesty for the Salvadorans for I think 15 years now, and they haven't done anything to go back home. They say their country is fixed, the strife is over, and they need to go back home. That's a big problem. We have already got hundreds of thousands of immigrants at that point. Now, to just march up here now, no, they need to go home. They can be vetted all they want in Mexico City, but they need to go home. And the other thing is, it's a publicity stunt.
Meaning,
there's organizations, the organization that is running this march has been doing it for 10 years. And this is the first time it has been this publicized. Gee, I wonder why.
All right, Graham, you're up next. Mexico seems to be the one who needs to broker a deal here. What do you think they should be doing in this situation?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think President Trump is on the right track here. I think his strategy here is to lean on the Mexicans to make them do more. And we really do need to get them to enforce their laws at their southern border, because Mexico actually has very strict immigration laws and they enforce them very meticulously. You know, you easy can end up landing in jail for a couple of years if you enter Mexico illegally. So, of course, what's happening is the moment this large group of people comes across the Mexican border, the southern border, and enters Mexico, they're actually, all of them, in violation of Mexico's immigration laws. So really, yes, Mexico does need to start enforcing their own laws. They're basically deliberately allowing these people to flaunt Mexican immigration law purely because they're on the way here.
Scott, there was some talk or a hint by the president yesterday that he just might call out the National Guard. What do you think of that?
Well, I think I want to go back to your introduction and correct you and say that we're not all conservatives. Some of us are libertarians, and we reject the conservative label because it is a somewhat reactionary label that first there needs to be a set position for us to be conservative about, rather than the libertarian position, which says always that there are certain positions that are correct and others that aren't. And I would say that we're warranted for doing a security check for people who want to immigrate here. But the idea that we should hold them back for other reasons, I think I stand in opposition to, and I think that we should not engage the National Guard or other military. This is not a military invasion, and so the military shouldn't be called out. These are people who wish we'll take them at their word and say they're looking for asylum. And as I understand it, the latest news is Mexico has granted them asylum visas. So they have special visas that permit them to legally transmit themselves through Mexico for the purpose of presenting themselves to the United States border officials and asking for asylum, that's sort of how the asylum process needs to work. But I stand in opposition to the idea that we should build the wall and that we should react to these people like they are some kind of an army. If we didn't have the generous social safety net that is not authorized in the Constitution, I think a lot of these concerns would be voided. And I think that this presents actually a great opportunity for conservatives and libertarians, Lisa, to say, hey, let's welcome these people and not provide them any largesse at the taxpayers' expense. If they want to come and be free to live and work in peace, then we can welcome them with open arms.
All right, so fair enough. Libertarians do have a different point of view from conservatives, and you have long taken the classic libertarian stance. Sarah, as a conservative, where do you fall on that?
Frankly, I think they are, in some respects, invading our country. This is, I'm not sure we're ready to call out the military. That depends on whether or not that the threat of losing NAFTA, and if Mexico does their job and vets these people that can stay there, that need to go back, and that they can put forth for United States asylum or work visa or permits or whatever they're going to need to get done. But if you look at it, we have been invaded by El Salvador. We've been invaded by Mexico for way too many years. They are, in a sense, invading our country, and standing around and hoping they get a job and pay their taxes isn't going to fix the problem.
Okay, so Graham, Trump seems to be playing a little show me the money. Do you think he'll actually pull the trigger and hold up Honduras's, I think it was $127 million in aid, or Trump could use NAFTA to hammer Mexico over the head to get what he wants here?
Yeah, I think he's more likely to do that. I'm not sure that the president is going to go through with any kind of financial punishment of Honduras, to be honest. But I do think, I do think Trump has never liked NAFTA, and I believe that he's probably going to now heavily use NAFTA as a kind of an instrument of coercion with the Mexicans to make them enforce their laws and secure their borders, because of course, you know, there's nobody immediately south of the United States other than Mexico. So if we can get them to enforce their border, secure their borders and enforce their laws, then we're not going to have this problem. We're simply only going to be dealing with people trying to come here illegally, actually from Mexico and not from anywhere else. So yeah, I definitely think that he's probably not going to punish Honduras, but he is going to use this to beat the Mexicans over the head, so to speak, until they shape up.
Right.
Lisa, can
now,
I just
Scott,
interject?
Let me just ask you a question. Let me just ask you a question, Scott. Americans, while I appreciate your position from the libertarian standpoint, Americans have been chanting "Build the Wall" for a while now. They elected Donald Trump partially on this. He is the people's representative. So does this put a spotlight on the need for a wall, or will this caravan cause people to rethink the need for a wall since these folks are crying asylum?
Well, if they apply for asylum, then I think it will not. If they try to just march over the border, then I think it's a bad move politically for those of us who don't want to see a wall built, because that will generate an opposition movement that is able to be sort of portraying them as an invading army. So I just wanted to say earlier that why are we giving Honduras $127 million a year? That just seems crazy. Where's that authorized in the Constitution, and what are we getting from it? It seems like a perfect opportunity to draw a line item through that in the budget going forward.
Well, because USAID gives money to practically every country on the face of the earth. And, that's just what we do. And I don't know what we're giving them money for, but we are. And that is leverage. Don't you think so, Sarah?
I agree. We do give money. We do give aid. We are the sort of the big guy on campus when it comes to helping people out. It's been, grandfathered in to some degree, but I think it's a good idea to make them pay the piper. We can't just continue to be the guy who gives it all away and doesn't get anything in return.
All right, open forum. Now, Scott, Graham, you can make your points. What What do you want to say about this situation? And does anyone else have anything to say about the National Guard? I personally think he is going to call out the National Guard. I personally think he is going to have them try to cross our border and run into the National Guard. That may happen while this video is being watched. Does anybody have anything else to say about it?
Yeah, I do. They just have to get 1 foot across, and we have to take them in and figure out what their situation is. They shouldn't even get near us. They should stay in Oaxaca. I think they're still in the southern state of Oaxaca in Mexico. So I think they should just stay there until we, raise the flag and says, come on up, we'll vet you. But Mexico needs to do their job.
Well, I personally, I would rather not see any U.S. military presence at the border. I'm very much a libertarian myself. However, libertarians kind of fall into 2 separate categories when it comes to borders. There are kind of open borders libertarians, and then there are those such as myself who believe that sovereign nations have the right to defend their own borders and decide who comes into the country. However, it's just going back to what Scott said earlier on about the welfare state we have. It's very hard to argue against that. It's very hard to argue against the idea that if we didn't have such a generous welfare state in this country, then these people wouldn't come here in the first place. And I definitely think that, going forwards, very difficult to dismantle the welfare state in this country, but that would be the ultimate answer to the problem. As for us giving money to these other countries, well, look at the omnibus bill. That was loaded with all kinds of money going to all kinds of countries, which I know that the president didn't approve of half the time. And why? I really. It's a mystery to me why the United States is giving aid to almost any countries at all in the world. The money needs to be spent in this country.
Well, it's interesting. The omnibus bill calls for some money to go towards the border, but absolutely none of the money can be spent on cement, which is kind of interesting. Right. Well, maybe we should title this Libertarians and Conservatives Discuss Borders, because I'm with Sarah. I say enough is enough. Personally, I say bring out the guard, dare them to cross, and take captive anybody who puts 1 toe over the line. Thank you, Sarah, Scott, and Graham, and thank all of you out there in YouTube land for watching us. We'd like to ask you to subscribe to our Liberty Nation YouTube channel. Post a comment, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down on today's roundtable. Until we meet again, I'm Lisa K. Donner saying so long for now, and thanks for joining us for another LNTV.
Liberty Nation. News and commentary, minus the propaganda. LibertyNation.com.